So blended learning is a combination of face-to-face and online instruction, a hybridization of standard brick-and-mortar education with the internet and 21st century technologies. There are many benefits to blended learning, one being accessibility and another being differentiation. So there are many reasons why a student might need to log into class remotely on his or her own time. We see that a lot here at UMUC, with men and women in the U.S. Armed Forces taking courses while stationed overseas. Or you have the busy adult who works full-time, has a family, and is doing classwork late at night while everyone else is asleep. As far as blended learning tools, so in my classroom we use Google Classroom pretty extensively to bridge the gap between face-to-face and online instruction. In reviewing the different blended learning models, I'd say that UMUC utilizes an online driver model. And in my classroom, we use maybe a combination of the rotation and online lab models. So an example of what my classroom might look like on any given day. So last semester, I had my class conduct a web quest on the Crucible. So first I divided them into groups, defined the learning outcomes of the web quest, and then handed out worksheets with questions pertaining to McCarthyism, the Salem witch trials, and Arthur Miller. So once I cut them loose to work in their groups, they used their Chromebooks to conduct the web quest. And as they conducted their research, I circulated the room, making sure students were on task and answering any questions that they might have. I think this is the greatest advantage of blended learning. It's the personalization that it provides. So students can learn at their own pace and on their own time. In a traditional school setting, you might have a professor that talks very fast or has an accent that maybe is hard to understand. Maybe their handwriting is not so great. Speaking from experience, my chicken scratch is not the best, so I'm thankful that I type a lot more than I write on the whiteboard. But that's the great thing about blended learning, and more specifically online learning, is that if you miss something in a lecture, like as you would in a traditional school setting, you don't have that in online learning, because those resources are there whenever students might need them. There are videos to watch and rewatch and lectures to read and to annotate. So in teaching using a blended approach, what does the literature tell us? Philippa Garabik, I think that's maybe how you pronounce it, references several studies on teaching philosophies regarding online and face-to-face instruction. One such study conducted in 2006 found that teachers became more student-centered online, and their relations with students changed as they gave them more control. Teachers were more student-centered online than they were face-to-face, and they reported using new strategies such as integrating online discussions into the face-to-face classroom. A student-centered model is ultimately the goal, at least it is in my district, as that is viewed as being distinguished, to use Danielson's FFT terminology. I've seen from personal experience that online discussions can also promote equity in the classroom. So extroverted students tend to thrive in discussions and group activities, but what about the introverted students? Some of my brightest students, up to this point anyway, have been introverted to some degree, and I realized how insightful they were after reading their posts in the online forums. So for a student that doesn't say 2 words in class, he or she might write a very thought-provoking comment in an online class discussion. So is one form of participation better or preferable to the other? I would say that they're different, but all participation is encouraged. And if we can learn to engage all learning styles and personalities, then we are well on our way to creating a highly efficient and distinguished classroom using blended learning.